before we get started, I just want to ask the group, how many of you feel like personally, family-wise, financially, you could just sit back, put your hands behind your head and say, I've got it figured? Because if you are one of those people, you're probably not in the right place. This really is about us taking steps to make sure that we are doing what we need to do to stay financially healthy. I like to, the reason this is part of the wellness program, because it has a lot of very similar concepts in that we have the same bad habits with financial health that we do with physical health. Whereas we do these little roller coasters and we get like, oh, I'm super excited. I'm gonna get out of debt. I'm gonna pay down my loans. I'm gonna start saving money. I'm gonna put some dollars away for my kids' college fund. I'm gonna do all these things. And for like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you're like on board. You're checking your financials. You're looking at your balance sheets. You're checking your credit cards. Your credit card balances are coming down. You're like, yes, yes, yes. And after about 8 weeks, you're like, you know what? I really like that TV. And the TV ends up going on the credit card and you stop. And it's just like physical health, you do the same thing. You see this huge amount of people every calendar year in January that get gym memberships. Like, this is the year. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it for about 6, 8 weeks. And then you wake up one morning, you're like, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna sleep in today. I'm not going to the gym. I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow comes along, yesterday was so nice. I think I'm gonna sleep in again. And we fall off the wagon. So we had a conversation here at the corporate office, just a corporate staff meeting. And I asked people in the group, and I know there are several in here, how many of you have already signed up at one point for Smart Dollar? Okay. How many of those, keep your hands up, are still actively using Smart Dollar? Good job. I'm so proud that there's somebody that's doing it. So that's the thing. I kept my hand, I've been doing this. I've taught Dave Ramsey stuff for years. Last year, Hilltop decided to put into place Smart Dollar, which is tools available to its employees to help you create an emergency fund, to help you pay down your debt, to help you start looking towards the future. These are classes and tools that Dave Ramsey sells to the public, and usually if you want to do this on your own, it's probably $600 if you want to sign up for Dave Ramsey and have access to all this stuff. Hilltop has done this for all of its employees, and we want you to be financially healthy, just like we want you to be physically healthy. So that's what this is about. And if you have been on that financial roller coaster doing this, you're like, yes, and then 2 months later, you're like, well, that was a nice thought. Okay, now's the time. Let's get back. So that's what this is today is about. I know almost everybody has at one point tried to put in a plan to get better financially. These are tools that have worked with millions and millions of Americans. A lot of people have used these successfully. And what I'm telling you is if you use the tools, they will work. And not all the tools are for everyone. You may get into some of the stuff that Dave Ramsey has gone, it's like, So for me, Dave Ramsey says that you should stop paying into your 401k account, okay, until you get out of debt. For me, I look at that and I'm like, but Hilltop's giving me match up to 4%. That's free money. I'm like, okay, so if I was doing 6% before, maybe I drop down to 4 so I can at least get that match. Use that, but the thing that we need to be careful of is anytime we do some of these cost saving techniques that we're talking about, we have to dedicate ourselves to saying, okay, if I have 2% more coming back into my paycheck because I stopped paying into 401k, then I should be paying that money towards debt, towards some of my financial goals. Because if I don't do that, I'm never getting ahead. People always believe that next job, that next raise, that next promotion, everything's gonna be fine, okay? Multi-millionaires still go into bankruptcy because we have the same habits. It doesn't matter if you're making $10 an hour or you're making $200 an hour, you still end up in those same spending habits, that same credit and debt habits that you had, and this thought that somehow that next job or that next thing is gonna be the the impetus for us getting out of it, that's not real. Anybody that has been through, and most of you have already been through promotions and job changes, and every single time that happens, I guarantee, because it happens to me too, in the back of your head, you're going, well, now I can do this. Now I can put more money away. Now I can pay off debt. Now I can do this. And a month or two into it, you're like, where did all that money go? It's gone, okay? So, smart dollar. We're gonna talk through this. Please ask questions. I'm gonna talk you through the program, talk you through the tools. And really today is about incentivizing you to get back on the wagon if you've fallen off. Or for those of you who haven't signed up already, there's an extra 2 points if you actually sign up for Smart Dollar for the first time, and we'll show you how to do that. So you get 2 wellness points just for being here, another 2 if you sign up for Smart Dollar.
It's actually 4 if you sign up for Smart Dollar.
Oh, so you can get 6, and then you don't have to do much at all for the rest of the quarter. It's like you only need 4 more. It's like, I can get that sleeping. Isn't there a sleeping point system?
There's not one yet.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna play a little game. Oh, please, come on. Let's play a game. What percentage of Americans can cover a $1,000 emergency without using a credit card?
I'm gonna guess D.
36%. So a $1,000 emergency. I was just talking to Morgan and Dayton about my daughter this last week, Sunday night. She went out, she was going out with some friends. She went out to her car, she got in the car, she put it in reverse, and the car just went, it didn't go anywhere. She comes back in, Dad. I'm like, oh no. So I go out and I start the car. All the dashboard lights are on, like the battery light, the check engine light, all that stuff. I was able to get the car started, and sure enough, I put it into reverse, and it's just revving. It's not going anywhere. I'm like, please don't be the transmission. Please don't be the transmission. Please don't be the transmission. We ended up taking it in. Fortunately, and I never even realized this. I mean, obviously there was something wrong with the battery. I could tell that, and I was like, so alternator, I knew that there might be an issue. When I took it in, I said, okay, check this out. And the guy at the service station said, sometimes in these newer cars, alternator can affect some of the electronic stuff, and so it doesn't know that you're putting it in reverse, and so it's still, so it could be just the alternator. Oh, hallelujah, it was just the alternator. So it was a lot less expense. It was under my $1,000 emergency fund, which was great. That very rarely happens. Generally, you take a car in and it's serious issues, you're looking at a lot more than that. So I ended up spending about $400 one time. Guess what? I've been following Dave Ramsey's plan, and I have $1,000 in emergency fund, and so it doesn't have to affect my monthly budget. I can pull that out of savings, and then over the next several months or whatever, I can start putting that money back, build that up again. The idea about a $1,000 emergency fund is exactly that. We get into these habits that we're gonna start paying down debt, we're gonna do all those things, but then something happens. Life happens to every single one of us. Something always is going to break. Something is gonna go wrong. You're gonna have an illness, you're gonna have whatever, and then you pull out the credit card, right? You start pulling out the credit card. The idea is if we have $1,000 in emergency fund, we can start focusing on other things. 36% of Americans can handle a $1,000 emergency without using a credit card. Only 36%. So about 1 out of 3. Come on. What percentage of Americans have less than $10,000 saved for retirement? Come on. Yep. 55%. More than 55% of Americans have less than $10,000 saved for retirement. So if you look at your monthly bills, if you had $10,000 in retirement, how long are you going to be able to retire? Wow! You've got your expenses down. But this really is about us looking towards the future. Are we preparing for that time when we can stop working? Or are we going to be part of the group of Americans? Right now, we have Americans that are continuing to work longer and longer and longer and longer. We have some of them here at Hilltop as our employees that are working into their 70s, into their 80s, okay? Because they don't have a retirement fund they haven't been setting aside. Come on. On average, what percentage of Americans' take-home pay goes towards debt? %. So a quarter of every American's paycheck is just paying debt. Okay, that's not new stuff. That's not your bills. That's not clothes. That's not school. That's just paying off debt. And if you just had that alternator go out and you couldn't afford it, then your debt just went up. You're paying a little bit more. Okay, I love the adage that those that understand interest earn it. Those that don't, pay it. And that is super important. When I talk to my kids about finances, there's 2 books that I tell them that they need to read. Okay? The Richest Man in Babylon. I don't know if anyone, it's a small, skinny little book, but it has really, really good advice about managing money. And the second one is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Which is about a kid that grew up in Hawaii. His father was actually moderate income, but he had a really good friend of his whose dad was really, really wealthy. And he talks about the differences in attitudes around money and how you do things from what his dad was telling him versus this other kid's dad and what he learned from that about things that he could do for the rest of his life to build wealth and to build financial security. So those 2 books, I tell my kids, you have to read these before you leave high school. I don't want you out there in the world until you've read them. And both of them are really simple, easy books to read, but really, really good, sound financial principles in both of those books. I teach an adulting class. I'm actually, every year at the school district is asking me to go in and teach Central High School, Grand Junction High School, Fruita High School, Palisade High School, an adulting class on finances. And the whole intent is try to get some of these real world values around finances, around debt, around credit, all that stuff, because it's not being taught in our schools. We're not learning how to be financially well. And it's important. These are life skills that all of us need to, and the debt companies, the credit card companies, the grocery stores, all the franchises, they understand them that don't pay it. They understand that rule. And that's why every time you walk into, whether it's Sears or whether it's Target or Kohl's or whatever, when you check out, they're like, sign up. Are you a member? Do you have our card? Do you want this? Because they know if they can get you to start putting stuff on those cards, that you're going to be paying this 24%. It's just going to them. They're not only selling you that shirt, but they're selling you another 18% interest for anybody that doesn't end up paying that off. They know how quickly that builds up. Come on. What percentage of Americans would not be able to pay their essential bills if they missed a single paycheck? %78% are living paycheck to paycheck in our country. So if you think about that, 7 to 8 people, if you're thinking about the homes on your street, there's 10 homes. If they stopped receiving a paycheck, that's how many people will be in trouble within a pay period. That's huge, okay? And that isn't about us buying. It might be partly we buy more than what we should be buying, but the other part of it is how are we managing the rest of our life? How are we managing our expenses? How are we managing the day-to-day functions in our life? My wife and I, we live in a double wide mobile or trailer. We have a decent piece of land, and we've had conversations like we can go buy a decent house. And my wife has been like, yeah, but then I would have to clean a bigger house. I don't want that. Right now we have kids that clean, which is great, and mow the lawn. My kids keep asking me, we have a huge yard. They keep asking me, they're like, when are you going to get a riding lawnmower? I'm like, I have 3 lawnmowers in my house right now. Until you leave, I don't need a lawnmower. I have you. That's the intent. But sometimes when you think about this in context and start thinking about around us, 7 to 8 people would be in financial trouble if they missed one paycheck. That's really, really scary. We talked about this. Life happens. There's all kinds of stuff. You see the car over there? I was just talking about that. I know this happens to all of us. Doctor's expenses. We have illnesses. We fall and we break a leg. And yeah, we have some good insurance at Hilltop, but there's still that deductible that you're going to have to cover. And so those come at you. The sports thing is a big thing. I swear, every year at the beginning of school, I always am like, holy cow, I can't believe the fees. It's like, I got band fees, and I've got trip fees, and I've got athletic fees, and I've got this fees. It feels like I'm taking out a mortgage every time. And of course, I have 5 kids, so it multiplies. They all come at me and they're like, yeah, we want to do everything, Dad. Yeah, we want to do everything. That costs money. And we have to be planful about that. Do we want to relax? Do we want to take a break? Do we want to get out and go somewhere? This is showing a little picture of a beach. Most of us want to be able to get away. It's important that we are financially able to do that. And a lot of people, what's happening with vacations, you go back to that 78%, guess where the vacation is going? It's going on the credit card. Okay? Then you have to work the rest of the year, if then, to even get that paid off. Pets. Do pets cost money? Never. Okay. What do you want? As we look towards the future, we talk about the $10,000 that most Americans have, or less than $10,000. What is it that we're looking forward to? Are we looking forward to working until we're 70 or 80 years old? Are we looking forward to spending time with grandkids? Are we looking forward to traveling? Are we looking forward to doing some of those things that maybe you put off because you were working every day? Okay? They don't have my picture up there. Mine is fishing. That's what I want to. That's all I want to do. Okay? But do we have goals? Do we have dreams? Do we have those things? Yes. But we have to put actions in place, just like physical wellness. Financial wellness is the same thing. If we really want those things, we need to start doing things now to make a difference. Okay. Come on. So there is a little handout out there. If you already grabbed it, it's there. But there's the email or the website address to enroll for Smart Dollar. And that's Hilltop's. HHS is Hilltop Health Services. I don't know what 8819 is. Evidently, there's other HHSs out there. But that's where you go. You just sign up using your email. You create a password. You go in, and it's really, really simple. And it'll walk you through the different steps, and we'll talk through some of that here. So you can have a Smart Dollar account on your mobile phone, on your computer. When it comes to budgeting and when it comes to that kind of stuff, of course, I'm not a millennial either. I use a computer. It's just a lot easier for me. And you need to know that I wasn't using Smart Dollar tools before this. I was budgeting. I have a spreadsheet that's like this big for my personal finances. I used to do like Quicken or something like that, but then they started charging me money to download stuff from my bank, and I'm not a big person in spending money. So I created my own spreadsheet, and I download information into my spreadsheet and just populate it. It's a pretty cool spreadsheet. But they have tools for budgeting within this. And I've been using this tool, so we'll talk about it, about how it works. This is the Smart Dollar website, what it looks like. We will, at the end of this, we'll go in and I'll poke around some of these areas and show you some of the places that you can go. But ultimately, what you're looking at, when you first get in here, they're going to want you to take your wellness survey, figure out your first lesson, select your baby steps, and we'll talk about baby steps here shortly. But after you set your stuff up, Then when you come in, depending on which step you're on, if you're saving that $1,000, it's going to be saying, okay, what's your next step? What is the next thing you can do? Try to prompt you, give you motivation. How many of you need motivation when you have maybe like somebody at the gym that's pushing you, or even a partner or a spouse or somebody that's saying, you need to get up and run, okay? That's what Smart Dollar is about. It's really about trying to remind us, you need to do something. You need to do something, and something today. And that's the idea about financial wellness. You don't have to be working on budget every single day, but you should at least be looking at your budget at least once a week, if not more. The more you look at it, just like when you're spending time waking up in the morning and weighing yourself on the scale, it gives you motivation because you're looking at it and you're going, I need to do better. But you stop doing that, guess what? You're just like, well, that scale's stupid anyway. Just leave it in there. That budget is stupid anyway. Let's just leave it outside. The more that we focus on this and we do it consistently, that's when we start to gain traction. So here are the baby steps. Number one, $1,000 in a starter emergency fund. That is really the first thing. And Dave Ramsey's like, do this as quick as you can. If you need to sell something on eBay, if you need to, go without eating for a week, whatever it is, okay, get $1,000, put it in the bank, and don't touch it unless you have an emergency. You have to be disciplined enough to keep those dollars out there for exactly the reason I said in the beginning. So when your daughter goes out and can't put the car in reverse, you can take care of that, okay? Pay off all the debt with the debt snowball. You guys have all heard of, whether you've done Dave Ramsey or not, you've all heard about the debt snowball. And really the idea is pay off your smallest debt first and then roll whatever that payment was. So if you're paying $30 a month on a debt and you need to pay off $600, pay off the $600. Take that $30 and roll it to the next debt. And maybe you're paying $140 on that. Now you're paying $170. That's what the snowball does. Is that ball gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you end up starting to pay, maybe you're paying $400 after 6 months or a year towards that next debt on top of what the regular debt payment is. And those debts disappear a lot quicker. There's a lot of people that go and, I'm an accountant, I went to school, financials, all of that stuff, and I always looked at, okay, find the highest interest rate, pay off that, okay? And that does work if you're disciplined. If you're not disciplined, this is hugely motivational when you start seeing those debts disappear. So if you have 10 debts on your books and within 5-6 months you're down to 5 or 6 of those, and you start seeing those disappear, that's hugely motivational even if you're not paying the highest interest debt. If you start with the lowest, and you start seeing when debts disappear, there's another $40 a month, or $60, or $100, or $200, depending on what the debt is, that you have to now be rolling forwards to the other debt. But again, it gets back to, are we disciplined enough to then take those payments, and instead of going out and saying, yeah, but I could buy another thing. I just paid off my car. That's $300 a month, or $500 a month, or whatever it was. I could afford to go get another debt on another car, start paying $500 on that car, probably $600 or $700 now because they cost more now than they did last time I bought a car. You have to be disciplined in this process. Just like with financial or physical wellness, you have to be disciplined and say, no, this is what that money is for. 3 to 6 months, once you've paid off all of your debt except your house, okay? The house is the one thing he says, that debt you can continue to pay, but get rid of all your credit card debt, get rid of all those Kohl's cards, get rid of all that stuff, pay all that stuff off. Then 3 to 6 months of expenses and savings. This is going back to that conversation about how many people are living paycheck to paycheck. Can you imagine what your life would look like if you knew that you had access to 3 to 6 months worth of for a big thing? Okay, this isn't the car breaking down. This is my roof just fell in. Okay, this is my daughter just got diagnosed with some terminal illness. those are huge things that come up in our life, and we don't expect them and we don't want them to happen. But we are so much better prepared if we're planning ahead of time and having some dollars set aside for those kind of things. Next, once we have 3 to 6 months in savings, we move to invest 15% of your income. So right now, you get matched up to 4%. You can contribute into a 401k up to the maximum for the year, which I think right now is like 22,000, something like that. And if you're over 50, it's like $27,000 a year that you can invest. Now, Hilltop is only going to match up to 4% of that if you're doing that in Hilltop's 401k. But imagine how quickly your retirement savings is going to grow when you get to a place where you can start putting those dollars away. College funding. They cost lots and lots of money. So my first daughter's my third child. She started going back to school this year. She went to CMU. And I have been putting money in a 529, which is a college investment account for my kids since they were young. And when I put all that stuff in place, I was like 10, 15 years ago, I was starting to put dollars in there, and I didn't have tons of dollars to throw in it, but I was just putting dollars away. I calculated based on what college costs, what I thought it would grow at, and all that stuff. And I just started throwing money, and I really haven't paid much attention to it other than I know that money's going in there. So when my daughter decided to go to college, I was like, okay, we got this. She, signed up. We got all the bills and credits and all that stuff. And I looked at it and I was like, so if I multiply that times her and the next one and the next one, and my other one's coming back from his mission, he's going to go to college, and I start adding all that stuff up, I was way underfunded to help my kids through college. And yeah, I had to have a conversation with my wife and go, either they're going to have to figure it out, which is fine too. That's how I did it. Or we need to start putting more and more money in this. And so right now, college funding is a huge thing, and that price just continues to go up. If you have children and you're looking to, or even grandchildren anymore, there's a lot of grandparents that are helping fund college education for grandkids. Then next, so once we've got those things, once we start being able to pay 15% into retirement, once we've gotten our kids taken care of, then you start applying all those dollars into your home. Pay off your home early. Build wealth and give is his last step. He has these in the order that they need, that he says need to come. And this is something, again, that's been proven across the board. When people follow these steps, they are much better off than where they started. At Hilltop, we started this program last year, and we've had, I think the last thing that I pulled up, they give us little quarterly reviews, 150 some odd people participating. This last year, over almost $200,000, or a little over $200,000 in debt has been eliminated from the people at Hilltop. The program works if we stick to it. But as we saw here, and as I've seen across the company, we do this thing where we're like, let's get going, and then we fall off and we forget and we go into more debt. But just like physical fitness, it's okay. We are going to fall sometimes. It's okay as long as we get back on and we say, okay, I need to recommit. I need to do this again. Okay. So the other tool that's available on the Smart Dollar site is this thing called EveryDollar. It is a budgeting tool. So just like Quicken or QuickBooks or those types of things, you can track your monthly expenses against a budget. So the reason it's called EveryDollar, first of all, there's a couple things about this program that I don't like. First of all, it's not a longitudinal budgeting tool. It really is month by month, and they're categorized, and they're just like, you go in, you're budgeting for January right now, okay? You roll that budget over, and now you're budgeting for February. And January is back there. You're not sitting there looking at some graph that's saying, this is what's happening with all that stuff. And the idea behind EveryDollar, Dave Ramsey is saying, you need to know where every single dollar is going. So traditional budgeting for me, when I look at it and when I talk to people, I'm like, okay, here's all your income, fixed expenses. I always put fixed expenses down and I say, okay, what are the things you have to pay every single month? So you're looking at mortgage, utilities, food, all that kind of stuff, okay? And then under there, then you have variable expenses. So you may have food up here, but you may have some variable expenses where you're like, you know what, I am gonna go to Wendy's once a month. There's a budget there, okay? I don't go to Wendy's once a month, Morgan. I go more. Variable expenses are down below, but if you can get through all of your fixed expenses with your income, then the variable expenses are the ones that you're saying, well, could I modify any of that? Could I change some of my habits? And then down below in a traditional budget, you would say, okay, my income over expense is $12 for the month, okay? For some people, that's like, woohoo! My income is more than my expenses. What Dave Ramsey is saying is, no, that's not your budget. That $12 that's left over, you need to put it in savings, or you need to pay off debt, or you need to do something with that. And so every dollar really is about you ending up at zero at the end of the month and saying, I put every single dollar to work for me, whether it was for my regular expenses, whether I'm putting it in savings, whether I'm paying off debt. Every dollar is categorized someplace. Okay? And we'll go into that actual website here in a little bit. Come on. On mobile devices, you also have that. The sign-in is the same for every dollar as it is for Smart Dollar. And there's a link when you go into Smart Dollar that says every dollar, and you just click on the link, it'll take you there. And for the most part, most of the time it just signs me on because I've already signed on to Smart Dollar, but sometimes you may need to do it. But it's exact same sign-on. So you use the same username and password as you used for Smart Dollar. Smart Dollar has a customer support. They do have people that are certified to do this, and they're financial people. They understand this. If you have questions about Smart Dollar, if you have questions about every dollar, send them a little note and say, hey, I don't understand this, or how does this work or not work. They will get back to you. You can also contact me. I'm the Smart Dollar guy for Hilltop. So if you are stuck or lost or whatever, shoot me an email and let me see if I can't work it through. There are some quirks to these programs that I can't help you with. And I was just talking to someone earlier about the whole savings piece, and every dollar is kind of funky because it works kind of opposite the way that the rest of the program works. But that's okay. So more than 4.5 million people have used this plan to change their lives for the better. Average person pays off $9,400 in debt and saves $6,100 in the first year if you continue to use this program. Now, obviously, there's a wide range of people. Okay, you may have somebody that pays off $20,000 in debt. I just read an article, it was on the news like a month ago, some young couple that paid off like $64,000 in student loan debt in like 12 months or something. They're like, how did you do it? Well, we were hermits for a year. I mean, basically, they did nothing but pay off their student loan debt because they wanted to get out of it. So Hilltop is offering this opportunity at no cost to you and your family. We want employees to have tools to help them achieve their financial goals. We would like to see employees at Hilltop less stressed about their finances. Happy workers are better workers. Okay, if you're not as stressed about what's happening at home and what's happening with that debt and what's happening with your bills, you're going to be more focused at what you need to do. So we get a side benefit of this when we have employees that are focusing on fiscal wellness. Engage employees at every level. Okay, as I said before, it doesn't matter whether you make $10 an hour or a gazillion dollars an hour. There are things that you can learn and rely on, and these are fiscal management tools that are proven. If you focus on this, I guarantee, I promise you, that you will find a way to be better off financially. I know I've talked to some people that have come to this class and have felt like, hey, I've got no debt, I don't have any of that stuff. And when we go through the process, they start looking through their budgeting and they're like, holy cow, I didn't realize I was spending $114 a month on Starbucks coffee. Okay? A lot of times what ends up happening is when we have a transaction, we look at it just by itself. So when we're going to Starbucks and we're spending $4, you're like, it's $4. It's not that big a deal. When we're able to put that in a budget and put it in context and go, well, how many times did I do that? How many times did I go to Wendy's this last month? Okay, you start putting those things together and you start going, do I really need $150 worth of coffee? Do I really need? And those are the kind of decisions that help when we are looking at our budgets for us to say, can I make a conscious decision to change my habits, to change how I'm doing something, so that at the end I have a little more than $12 that I can put towards savings or put towards debt. Maybe I can put $40 towards something this month. That's the important thing. Okay.